The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air wasn't just a sitcom. It was a cultural revolution that brought black excellence into the American living room. We laughed at the Carlton dance and cried when Will's father walked out. But behind the vibrant colors and the millionaire lifestyle, the cast was fighting a silent war. We witnessed the heartbreaking erasure of a queen, the crushing weight of perfectionism that nearly destroyed a superstar, and the lonely, quiet death of the man who was the show's moral compass. Tonight, we turn off the laugh track to hear the true heartbeat of the Banks family. Let's begin with the giant who held them all together. James Avery as Philip Banks. Long before he ascended to the judicial bench of Bel-Air, James LaRue Avery was forging a path of discipline and resilience. Born in the autumn of 1945, specifically on November 27th, he grew up in Atlantic City, a world away from the manicured lawns of California. His journey to acting was not a straight line. It was a road paved with service and sacrifice. He served his country in the U.S. Navy during the Vietnam War from 1968 to 1969, an experience that instilled in him a profound sense of duty. By the time he was cast as the patriarch of the Banks family, he was already a seasoned man of 45 years old, bringing a lifetime of gravitas to a sitcom that desperately needed a moral center. As Uncle Phil Avery gave us one of television's greatest fathers, he could shift in a heartbeat from a terrifying disciplinarian to a gentle giant offering a warm embrace when the world turned cold. He was not just an antagonist to Will's antics. He was the structure that allowed the comedy to flourish. We loved him because he represented the father figure many yearned for: strong, successful, unapologetically black, and deeply protective. When he hugged a crying Will after his biological father abandoned him, Avery wasn't just acting. He was channeling a universal truth about love and fatherhood that transcends the screen. However, the strength he projected on screen masked a physical vulnerability that would eventually claim him. Avery's life was a triumph of art, but his body waged a quiet war against him. He battled severe coronary heart disease, end-stage kidney disease, and type 2 diabetes illnesses that slowly eroded the vitality of the man who seemed invincible to his fans. The hidden pain was not of the spirit, but of the flesh. In late 2013, he underwent open-heart surgery, a procedure meant to extend his time with us, but fate had written a different ending. Following the conclusion of the show, Avery continued to work, lending his booming, authoritative voice to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as Shredder and appearing in various dramas. He remained a mentor to his TV children, particularly Will Smith, maintaining that fatherly bond until the very end. But the post-fame years were short-lived compared to the legacy he built. He did not live to see the 2025 reimagining of his show, nor the enduring revival of interest in the series that defines pop culture today. On New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2013, the world lost a giant. James Avery passed away at the age at death of 68, leaving a void that has never truly been filled. Today in 2025, his absence is still felt deeply by the cast and fans alike. He remains the eternal Uncle Phil, a symbol of tough love and dignity, reminding us that the strongest among us are often the ones who love the hardest. Tatyana Ali as Ashley Banks. Born in the winter of 1979 on January 24th, Tatyana Marcell Ali was a prodigy who understood the spotlight before she even understood the world. A false rumor from her childhood suggested she conquered Star Search with a 4-star rating at age 7, a myth that only underscored her perceived perfection. When she walked onto the set of The Fresh Prince, she was just 11 years old, a little girl with a big voice and an even bigger heart. She didn't just play Ashley Banks. She navigated the treacherous waters of adolescence while millions watched, balancing homework with camera blocking. As Ashley, Tatyana was the audience surrogate, the little sister we all wanted to protect. She was the bridge between Will's street-smart Philadelphia roots and the bougie Bel-Air lifestyle. We watched her have her first crush, sing her first song, and rebel against her father's strict rules. Her performance was nuanced and sweet, capturing the awkwardness and beauty of growing up. She was the heart of the show's youth, proving that even the youngest member of the cast could hold the screen against comedy giants. Yet the transition from child star to adult woman came with terrifying real-world challenges. Her Hidden Truth is a harrowing story of obstetric violence during the birth of her first son. It was a traumatic experience where she felt unheard and unsafe in a medical setting, a pain far removed from the glitz of Hollywood. This trauma, however, forged a new purpose in her. It inspired her to testify in Congress, transforming her personal nightmare into a crusade for Black maternal health, ensuring other women would not suffer the same silence she endured. Life after the Banks mansion has been a journey of reinvention and stability. Tatyana did not fade away. She evolved. She graduated from Harvard, proving her intellect matched her talent. As of late 2025, she is happily married to Vaughn Raspberry and is a devoted mother to 2 sons. She runs a production company with her sister and even launched a quilt line, Baby Yams, to support her advocacy work. Most poetically, she returned to the franchise that made her appearing as Ms. Hughes in the dramatic reboot Bel-Air. Now standing at the current age of 46, Tatyana Ali is a testament to grace under pressure. She survived the child star curse to become a dignified artist and a fierce advocate. Her legacy is no longer just about being the little girl from Bel-Air. It is about being a voice for mothers everywhere, proving that the little sister has grown into a matriarch in her own right. Sherman Hemsley as Judge Carl Robertson. Long before he donned the judge's robes or did his famous strut, Sherman Alexander Hemsley was a man of humble beginnings. Born in 1938 on February 1st in South Philadelphia, he was a quiet, shy man who found his voice on the stage. He was already a legend by the time he guest-starred on The Fresh Prince, having defined a decade of television with the Jeffersons. When he appeared on the show in 1990, he was 52 years old, bringing with him an energy that was electric, chaotic, and utterly hilarious. Though his time on The Fresh Prince was limited, playing the corrupt, loud-mouthed Judge Carl Robertson, and briefly reprising George Jefferson, his impact was seismic. He was the perfect foil to Uncle Phil, a man who possessed none of Phil's dignity, but all of his volume. Audiences roared with laughter at his antics, seeing 2 eras of sitcom history collide. Hemsley had a unique gift for physical comedy, a way of moving and shouting that made even the most detestable characters lovable. Behind the laughter, Hemsley was an intensely private man, a recluse who never married and had no children. His final years were marred by a cruel and hidden battle with cancer. He died from superior vena cava syndrome, a complication of lung and bronchial carcinomas. But the tragedy did not end with his last breath. In a heartbreaking turn of events, his body lay unburied for months as a legal battle raged over his will and his remains. A man claiming to be his brother fought Hemsley's longtime friend Flora Enchinton, turning his final rest into a courtroom drama. The courts eventually upheld his will, and he was laid to rest with the dignity he deserved. But the delay cast a shadow over his passing. Since his death, his work has only grown in estimation, serving as a masterclass for comedic actors. He left behind a body of work that serves as a time capsule of African-American progression on television, from the volatile George Jefferson to the corrupt Judge Robertson. Sherman Hemsley left this world on July 24, 2012, at the age at death of 74. He was a man who gave his life to making us laugh, even as he kept his own life strictly to himself. In the annals of television history, he remains a giant, a fresh prince of comedy long before the title was ever coined. Will Smith as the Fresh Prince. The legend began with a beat and a rhyme. Born in the autumn of 1968 on September 25th, Willard Carroll Smith II was a young rapper with boundless energy and a magnetic smile. He was facing financial ruin when the opportunity of a lifetime appeared. At just 22 years old, he stepped onto the set of a show built entirely around his persona. He wasn't a trained actor. He was a force of nature, learning his lines by mouthing the other actors' dialogue, fueled by a desperate need to succeed and a charm that could not be taught. Will Smith didn't just play the Fresh Prince. He was the electric current that powered the 90s. He was cool, goofy, vulnerable, and effortlessly charismatic. We watched him transform from a street-smart kid into a responsible man. His ability to pivot from slapstick comedy to gut-wrenching drama, like the iconic scene where he asks why his father doesn't want him, proved he was a generational talent. He made us believe that a kid from Philly could belong in a mansion, and in doing so, he made us all feel like we belonged too. But the ascent to global superstardom came with a steep price. The hidden truth of Will Smith is a complex tapestry of public glory and private turmoil. His marriage to Jada Pinkett Smith became a spectacle of unconventional practices and admitted separations. The crack in the armor shattered publicly at the 2022 Oscars, where he slapped Chris Rock, a moment of violence that resulted in a 10-year ban from the Academy. By late 2025, he faced further legal headaches with a lawsuit from a former associate alleging a retaliatory campaign by his wife, painting a picture of a life under constant siege. Despite the controversies, Will Smith remains an undeniable titan of the industry. He has spent the last few years on a journey of reconstruction. As of December 2025, he has returned to his roots, releasing his fifth studio album based on a true story and continuing to dominate the box office with sequels to Bad Boys and I Am Legend. He even nodded to his past with a cameo in the Bel-Air finale, closing a circle that began over 30 years ago. Now, at the current age of 57, Will Smith stands as a complex icon. He is a man who has touched the highest peaks of fame and navigated the lowest valleys of public scrutiny. His legacy is no longer just about the Fresh Prince. It is about the resilience of a man trying to find his footing while the whole world watches his every step. Alfonso Ribeiro, as Carlton Banks, before the sweaters and the Tom Jones music. Alfonso Lincoln Ribeiro was a child prodigy of the Bronx. Born in 1971 on September 21st, he was a seasoned performer long before Bel-Air. He danced alongside Michael Jackson in a Pepsi commercial and tapped his way through Broadway. By the time he was cast as the uptight cousin Carlton at 19 years old, he was a veteran of the stage. He brought a physical precision to the role that was unmatched, turning a character that could have been a villain into one of the most beloved figures in television history. Carlton Banks was the perfect counterweight to Will's coolness. Alfonso played him with a manic, preppy energy that was impossible to dislike. The Carlton dance became a cultural phenomenon, a moment of pure, unadulterated joy that transcends generations. But beyond the dance, Alfonso gave Carlton a soul. He showed us the insecurities of a young black man trying to fit into a world that didn't always understand him, making us root for him even when he was being ridiculous. However, the role that made him a legend also built a cage around his career. Alfonso has spoken openly about the sacrifice of playing Carlton, stating that it effectively ended his acting career because the industry could only see him as that character. He faced the cruel irony of being globally famous, yet professionally stifled. He even fought a legal battle against Epic Games over the use of his signature dance, a fight to reclaim ownership of the very thing that defined him. Though he ultimately lost that specific war. Refusing to be defeated by typecasting, Alfonso reinvented himself as a master of unscripted television. He found a new home as a host, bringing his infectious energy to America's funniest home videos and Dancing with the Stars. He found stability in his personal life as well, marrying Angela Unkrich and raising a family. He didn't let Hollywood's limitations stop him. He simply built a new lane. Today, at the current age of 54, Alfonso Ribeiro is a fixture of American living rooms, not as a character, but as himself. He proved that while the industry may have tried to trap him in the past, his talent and charisma were always destined to carry him into the future. He remains the rhythm of the show, a man who kept dancing even when the music changed. Janet Hubert as Vivian Banks, the original. Janet Louise Hubert was a force of elegance and fire. Born in the winter of 1956 on January 13th, she came from a background of rigorous training and Broadway excellence. She was a woman of immense talent and dignity. When she took on the role of Aunt Viv at 34 years old, she brought a sophistication that grounded the show. She wasn't just a sitcom mom. She was a career woman, a dancer, and a fierce protector of her family, representing a multifaceted image of black womanhood rarely seen on TV at the time. The original Aunt Viv was iconic. She had a chemistry with James Avery that was palpable, and a sharpness that kept Will in check. Whether she was showcasing her dance moves in a ballet class or dressing down a neighbor for their ignorance, she commanded every scene she was in. She gave the show a texture and depth that was sorely missed after her departure, embodying a type of motherly strength that felt both ancient and modern. Her exit from the show was the stuff of tabloid legend, a hidden truth that was public yet misunderstood for decades. Labeled difficult and feuding with Will Smith, she was blacklisted in an industry that is often unkind to outspoken women. She revealed later that she was trapped in an abusive marriage during those years, fighting wars on two fronts. Physically, she suffered greatly, battling osteoporosis and a decade-long struggle with spinal pain that led to fusion surgery. For years, she carried the weight of a ruined reputation and physical agony. But time and truth have a way of healing. The 2020 reunion special saw a tearful and powerful reconciliation with Will Smith, where she finally told her side of the story, reclaiming her narrative. Since then, her career has bloomed once more. She has appeared in Pose the Ms. Pat Show, and in a poetic twist, joined the cast of the Bel-Air reboot in 2025. She has found love with her husband Larry Kraft, and continues to advocate for osteoporosis awareness. At the current age of 69, Janet Hubert stands vindicated. She is a survivor of Hollywood politics and physical trauma, standing tall as a queen who refused to be dethroned. Her journey reminds us that while characters can be recast, the spirit of a true artist can never be replaced. Joseph Marcell as Geoffrey Butler. Joseph Marcell was born in 1948 on August 18th in St. Lucia before moving to the UK, where he was molded by the rigorous traditions of the theater. He was a classically trained actor, a man of Shakespeare and the Royal Shakespeare Company. It was a delightful paradox that this man of high art would find his greatest fame in an American sitcom. He was 42 years old when he donned the butler's uniform, bringing a level of technical precision and timing that elevated every joke he delivered. Geoffrey was not a servant. He was the smartest man in the room. With an arched eyebrow and a dry remark, he could dismantle the ego of any Banks family member. Marcell played him with a dignity that refused to be subservient. He was the Greek chorus of the show The Outsider Looking In, commenting on the absurdity of the wealthy American life with a sarcasm that was delicious. We loved him because he said exactly what we were thinking, only he said it with an accent that made it sound like poetry. Unlike his co-stars, Marcell's life has been relatively free of public scandal, though not without its quiet struggles. His first marriage ended in divorce in 1980, a personal heartbreak that occurred long before his Hollywood fame. His pain was perhaps the subtle artistic struggle of a classically trained actor being defined by a butler's uniform, navigating the narrow perceptions of what a black British actor could be in Hollywood. Since leaving the mansion, Marcell has returned to his first love, the stage. He has served on the board of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, playing King Lear and other titans of the canon. He has not shunned his sitcom past, however, appearing in the 2020 reunion and guest starring in the Bel-Air reboot in 2024. He continues to work in horror films and dramas, constantly stretching his artistic muscles. Now, at the current age of 77, Joseph Marcell is a revered elder statesman of the acting world. He is a recipient of the Sam Wanamaker Award, recognized for his contributions to classical theater. He proved that one can be both a pop culture icon and a guardian of high art, walking both worlds with the same effortless grace as Geoffrey walking through the Banks' living room. Karyn Parsons as Hilary Banks. Born in the autumn of 1966, on October 8th, Karyn Parsons was a stunning young woman trying to break into a tough industry. When she landed the role of Hilary at 24 years old, she was tasked with playing a character that could have easily been unlikable. Hilary was spoiled, self-obsessed, and shallow. Yet Karyn brought a sweetness and a timing to the role that made Hilary endearing rather than annoying. She was the princess of Bel-Air, oblivious to the world but fiercely loved by her family. Hilary Banks was a fashion icon and a comedic gem. Karyn's performance was deceptively difficult. It takes a smart actor to play a dumb character so effectively. Her catchphrases and her constant demands for money became staples of the show. Beneath the surface, she showed us a young woman trying to carve out her own identity, eventually becoming a successful talk show host. Karyn made us laugh at materialism while simultaneously dazzling us with it. After the cameras stopped rolling, Karyn faced the cold reality of typecasting. She found it challenging to secure diverse roles as her name recognition faded, and the industry struggled to see her as anything other than the bougie Hilary. Her marriage to actor Randy Brooks ended in divorce early in the show's run. The pain of being frozen in time as a specific character led her to pivot away from the screen and look inward for a new purpose. Karyn Parsons reinvented herself as a storyteller for the next generation. She founded the Sweet Blackberry Foundation, an organization dedicated to telling the stories of unsung Black heroes to children. She became an author, penning books like How High the Moon and Clouds Over California. She found a creative partner and husband in director Alexandra Rockwell, with whom she has 2 children. She occasionally returns to acting, but her heart is now in education and literature. At the current age of 59, Karyn Parsons is a woman of substance. She took the fame she gained from playing a character who cared only about herself and used it to create a platform that cares about history and children. She is no longer just the weather girl of Bel-Air. She is an author and an activist writing a legacy far more meaningful than any script. Ross Bagley as Nicky Banks. Born in the winter of 1988 on December 5th, Ross Elliott Bagley was thrust into the limelight at an age when most children are just learning to tie their shoes. He joined the cast in season 5 at the tender age of roughly 5 years old. He wasn't just a prop. He was a character with lines, timing, and a personality that had to mesh with a cast of seasoned pros. He was the adorable little brother who completed the Banks family unit, as Nicky Ross was the cute factor that softened the edges of the older characters. He allowed Will to show a nurturing side and gave Uncle Phil a second chance at raising a son during his golden years. His chemistry with Will Smith was so potent that they teamed up again for the blockbuster Independence Day. For a brief moment in the mid-90s, Ross Bagley was the most famous little boy in America. But fame is a heavy coat for a child to wear. The hidden truth of Ross's life is the overwhelming nature of early stardom. As he grew older, he chose to step away from the relentless gaze of the public. He took a long hiatus after 2004, seeking a normal life that the industry could not provide. The transition from cute kid star to adult actor is a graveyard for many careers, and Ross wisely chose to prioritize his education and his peace over the pursuit of the spotlight. Today, Ross has built a life grounded in reality. He works as a real estate agent in Los Angeles and spins records as a DJ, finding a rhythm in life that is entirely his own. He is a father to a son named Reese, passing on the lessons of his unique childhood. While he has expressed openness to returning to comedy, he is no longer defined by the need for applause. Now, at the current age of 37, Ross Bagley is a man who survived the machine. He is a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing a child star can do is walk away and grow up on their own terms. He remains the baby of the Banks family, forever young in reruns, but a grown man of his own making in the real world. Daphne Reid as Vivian Banks II. Daphne Etta Maxwell. Reid was a trailblazer long before she entered the Banks mansion. Born in the summer of 1948 on July 13th, she had already made history as the first African-American woman to grace the cover of Glamour magazine. When she took over the role of Aunt Viv in 1993, she was 45 years old, a seasoned professional stepping into an impossible situation. She initially turned down the role, but destiny and the need for a stabilizing force brought her to Bel-Air. Replacing Janet Hubert was a thankless task, but Daphne brought a different energy to Vivian Banks. She was softer, more maternal, and provided a calm counterpoint to the increasing wackiness of the show's later seasons. While the character shifted from a fierce career woman to a more domestic figure, Daphne played her with a quiet dignity and a supportive warmth that helped the show navigate its final years. She weathered the storm of comparison with a smile that never faltered. Her hidden truth lies in the shadow she had to walk in. For years, she faced the criticism of fans who missed the original Aunt Viv, a burden that no actor asks for. Yet she handled it without bitterness. Her life outside the show was filled with the hard work of running New Millennium Studios with her husband, Tim Reid, a Black-owned studio that was a beacon of independence until 2014. She understood the business of show business better than most. Daphne has remained a vibrant, creative force. She is a designer with her own clothing line, a photographer, and an author of a cookbook and memoir. She is a true Renaissance woman. She, too, participated in the emotional 2020 reunion and guest-starred in the Bel-Air drama, showing that there is room enough in the legacy for both Aunt Vivs. At the current age of 77, Daphne Reid is an icon of elegance. She has been married to Tim Reid since 1982, a rare Hollywood success story of enduring love. She proved that dignity isn't about being the first or the loudest. It's about staying true to oneself regardless of the noise. She is the graceful aunt who welcomed us in even when the house was already full. Don Cheadle as Ice Tray. Donald Frank Cheadle Jr. was born in 1964 on November 29th. Before he was an Avenger or an Oscar nominee, he was a grinding actor looking for his break. He appeared in just one episode of The Fresh Prince in Season 1 at the age of 26 years old. He played Ice Tray Will's rough-around-the-edges friend from Philly. It was a role that played on stereotypes, yet Cheadle imbued it with such charisma and humanity that he nearly stole the show from the lead. His performance was so magnetic that a spin-off series centered on Ice Tray was actually filmed. The pilot was shot, the scripts were written, but the network ultimately passed. It is a fascinating what-if in television history. Cheadle's Ice Tray was funny, dangerous, and heartfelt, showing the roots that Will had left behind. Even in a guest spot, his star power was undeniable, a signal flare that a major talent had arrived. The pain for Cheadle in those early years was the grind of the almost. The spin-off that died could have defined his career, potentially trapping him in the sitcom world. Instead, the failure of that pilot was a blessing in disguise. It freed him to pursue dramatic roles that would eventually lead him to Hotel Rwanda Crash and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Don Cheadle has become one of the most respected actors of his generation. He is a producer, a director, and a humanitarian. As of late 2025, he is a key player in the Star Wars universe and continues his role as War Machine. He won a Grammy, a Tony, and countless other accolades. He married his longtime partner, Bridget Coulter, in 2020, cementing a life of partnership and art. Now 61 years old, Don Cheadle is a titan. His brief stop in Bel-Air is now a fun footnote in a career that has shaped modern cinema. He represents the hustle that pays off the guest star who became a galaxy of his own. Queen Latifah as Dee Dee. Dana Elaine Owens, known to the world as Queen Latifah, was born in 1970 on March 18th. She was a hip-hop pioneer who broke barriers with her feminist anthems. When she guest-starred on The Fresh Prince in 1991, she was just 20 years old, appearing in two different roles. First as a bossy boss, and then as Dee Dee, a woman whom Will dates, but is embarrassed to be seen with because of her size. Latifah's presence was revolutionary. In an era that often sidelined plus-sized women, she played a love interest who was confident, funny, and desirable. She forced the character of Will and the audience to confront their own shallowness. She radiated a self-assurance that was intoxicating. She wasn't just acting, she was making a statement that beauty comes in all forms and that a queen commands the room regardless of the script. Her journey has not been without deep sorrow. She suffered the tragic loss of her brother Lance in a motorcycle accident, a key figure in her life and career. Furthermore, she has fought a very public battle with body image scrutiny in an industry obsessed with thinness. She turned this pain into power, becoming a vocal advocate for the It's Bigger Than Me campaign, fighting the stigma of obesity and championing self-love. Queen Latifah is now a mogul. She is an actress, a rapper, a producer, and a cultural icon. She currently stars in The Equalizer, an action role that proves age and gender are no barrier to kicking down doors. She was an honoree at the Kennedy Center, honors cementing her status as an American treasure. She has found happiness with her partner Ebony Nichols and their child, living her truth openly and proudly. At the current age of 55, Queen Latifah is royalty in every sense of the word. She used her platform on The Fresh Prince to teach a lesson in self-worth, and she has spent the last 35 years living that lesson out loud. She remains the UNITY queen, standing tall, unbothered, and forever fresh. The mansion lights have dimmed, and the cab has finally driven away. Looking back from late 2025. The Fresh Prince stands as a monument to complex joy. We see a cast that survived feuds, industry blacklisting, and the brutal social stigma of public failures. They taught us that family isn't defined by blood, but by who stays when the cameras stop rolling. The laughter remains, but it is now tinged with the deep despair of knowing that Uncle Phil is no longer there to open the door. Good night, Bel-Air. Your legacy is safe, even if your hearts are scarred.